Lysa G.J., thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with me and talk about your sweet, sweet ride. We used to do a lot of community theater together in the Chameleon Theater Circle you guys started back in the early 2000s. I crashed on your couch a handful of times from late night either parties or set work or whatever. Set work, all set work. Yeah,
always. Yeah. It was definitely production related.
Yeah. So on my first public event, doing an EV event with my car, I didn't know what to expect, didn't really know anybody, was trying to talk to the other owners and stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm one too. And then you guys showed up, and I hadn't seen you in at least 10 years. Mm-hmm. I was able to kind of tell you about our car and kind of talk about what you guys were looking for in an EV. So and since you guys have owned the i3 now for about 15 months, a little over a year, and I wanted to check in, see how it's been. I guess take me through the process of how you got to, we're going to start looking for an EV.
Sure, yeah. Actually, I would say that when we saw you at that event, that was probably the end of the process for us. I think we were cementing if an EV was right for us, and I think that show said yes. I think you showing us your super sweet, cool Riot S, as well as we were able to see an i3 there, kind of out in the wild. That helped. So really, how it started was we were looking for a new car. It was time. Our kids are now in high school. We didn't need the minivan anymore. We could get something else. I happened to work from home even BC before coronavirus. I was already working from home as it is. So we also knew that we didn't need something for road trips. We didn't need something necessarily for commuting. And however, I don't think we thought that an electric vehicle was going to be in the works for this round until we realized that some used EVs were in our price range and what we were looking for.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate as far as, where we were in our process. I think we had come around to that we really wanted to be an EV owner. We were looking for options, but we kind of were like, maybe not this time, but maybe in the near future. And I think one of the things that was great about when we met you at that EV show was that we realized there's a lot of variety. It's not just all high-priced vehicles. There's a lot of options. A lot of them have been around for a while, and so there's used ones. And it seems like with a lot of the EVs, we were noticing that there is some drop in price when you go to a used vehicle. And so finding that good used vehicle seemed like it was within reach.
And so for the use case, you were saying, you were already working from home. So when you had the idea for this vehicle purchase, what was the use case? Just around town, or was it commuting to downtown, or what was your thought process there?
So we live in Lakeville, and it was primarily for around Lakeville, bringing kids to and from the high school, going to and from the grocery store. However, that said, I do occasionally go to downtown Minneapolis, so I wanted to make sure to find something that could facilitate that. And then once a month or so, I do have a meeting just north of Minneapolis. So I wanted something that had about 40 miles there, 40 miles back, so about 80 miles of range. So that was kind of the use case, but really we meant for it to be an around the city sort of car.
Okay. And I can't remember what the range on the i3 is.
Yeah, so we got the 2017, and there was which has 120 mile range during the summer. And in the last winter, we got about 95 miles on a charge.
And you have the range extender as well, right?
Yeah, this one has the range extender. So 2 gallons of gas adds about another 90 to 100 miles. But the reality is we're halfway through our second tank. And that's because the first tank we ran out because I was worried the gas was going to go bad. So it really hasn't, there's only one time in the middle of the winter, I forgot to charge, and I was at that 40-mile mark that I really needed it. So there's been one time in really the full 15 months that I'd say it's come in handy for us.
Cool. And we kind of talked about why you wanted to go with an EV.
Yeah, I think that the idea of getting away from fossil fuels and getting away from gas is was a big part of it, and the reliance on fossil fuels. So that was, I think, a motivating factor. And the fact that it runs clean as well. So those, I think, were big parts of it. And then the more investigating we kind of did, there's some, in the county we live in, there was some benefit to going with an EV, both from the electric company and installing the charger, and then also just in the, as far as in the outlet, to having the outlet installed, there was that benefit there, as well as you could even designate, like, you wanted wind power as far as being used on it, and you have the separate meter, and you can do the off meter charging. I mean, it just seemed like it was the right time, and there were the right incentives to try and pull the switch. And because he works from home, we didn't have the reliance or needed that. What we needed was a grocery getter or something that could run. The kids' school is like 1.5 miles from here. So if you were running back and forth between the school, I mean, this is kind of perfect for those instances.
You guys are on Dakota Electric?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't remember it all right now because it's been 2 years. So that's the thing with all the, like, I used to know, like, all the details on the i3. Mm-hmm. And then even on my car, like, somebody's like, what model is it? And I was like, it's S.
I think.
I don't remember, like, what the number is off the top of my head.
That's funny, when you contacted us, a day or two ago and asked us if we were interested. Yeah, absolutely. But for the last 24 hours, I'm like, now what are the specs again? Because you're right, I had them all at the tip of my head when we bought the car. But then it just becomes such a part of our day-to-day life that, you forget.
Yeah, it kind of becomes immaterial.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed more meaningful at the beginning than it does now, probably.
Everybody who owns an EV says, oh, they're great, you're going to love them, you're not going to worry about range, you start with a full battery every morning, and it's great. But until you get it and start driving it around, it's really hard to really believe that, or, see if it works for you. So it's kind of a leap of faith for anybody on their first one. So how did you find that, like, when you first brought it home, the first impressions?
Well, I think that's probably why, speaking of the leap of faith, that's probably why we got an EV on training wheels with the range extender, was just to help us get over that that mindset, the shift. Now, like I said earlier, it feels like we don't really need it. But bringing it home for the first time. Actually, what I remember is, it's like, hey kids, come look at the new car, right? And we all jumped in the car, and I think we had driven it a couple times with the two of us, but not with 4 people. And so I just remember the car feeling a little heavier because it's like, oh, there's 4, we have 2 teenagers, so you sense 4 adults in there. And we kind of got up on the road and put the pedal down, and it still felt like fast track at Disney World, right? At Epcot and Disney World. It's like we all kind of leaned back, and it made that, that futuristic whirling sound, and it was impressive.
Yeah. And I think it was kind of fun is, we were the first of our family to get an EV, so then it's something that, like, I think we took away from that EV show that we went to is everybody was just like, they almost like begged you to try their car, which was super cool. Mm-hmm. And so then when we got it, we were like piling neighbors and friends and anybody we'd see. People would stop him in the parking lot. You know what I mean? It was just like, we were just like letting everybody take a test drive and piling and everybody I think this car is deceiving because it's small, which is great. And it fits perfectly in our garage, which is great, and still giving us room so we can have 3 cars in the garage. But what's neat is when you're inside it, it's actually pretty roomy. And I think that was really fun, was getting people in there and then being like, wow, I had no idea it was this big inside. And just kind of, and then getting to drive it and it being so peppy and kind of fun. And they're like, oh, so this is an EV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is not your mother's EV. And that was what's fun. And I think the new EVs are like that. We've only test drove, a couple Teslas, but they're awesome. They're amazing. And so it was nice to be in a different vehicle and kind of test that. And see, oh my gosh, you're right. These are just so much fun. There's just none of that lag and they just move. And yeah, that was kind of the fun part of getting to play with it when we first got home.
Just side tangent, but like everybody says, oh yeah, I wouldn't buy an EV. It's a go-kart. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's more like the new ones like this. It's more like a roller coaster that you can drive.
Yeah.
And I can't remember ever getting off a roller coaster and going, oh, that was, that was lame. I'd never want to drive that. Yeah, I think the perception is so different from, when you get people in it and they put it down and wow, this is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And Lisa's right. Family, friends, everyone who, I think that, there's that mindset that I think folks have. And you could see it. You can see the shift when people, actually you had a lot to do with this, Brian, as well as the other group. The fact you all were so accommodating and like, no, drive this. And I remember even saying to you, I don't feel comfortable driving your super sweet, super, what I felt was expensive car. And you're like, no, I'm okay with it. And that was, I carried that mindset through, and I paid it forward to the next people who were feeling apprehensive to drive this. It's like, oh, no, please drive it because you're going to love it.
Yeah. And yeah, you do kind of realize like, yeah, it's just a car.
Yeah, it's just a car.
Setting up the charging and stuff, how was that as far as getting the charger you were going to use? Did that come with the car or you bought that separately?
No, we bought it separately. We just bought a charge point through Amazon. And when we contacted, actually, you tipped us off to the gentleman who set up your electrician. So when we contacted him, and he just said, "Yep, let me know the plug-in type." That's all he needed to know. So again, on the back end, it was all pretty easy. I mean, I think on the front end there was apprehension about how difficult is this going to be. But at the end of the day, it was pretty easy. And now we had our house reappraised recently. And one of the things we pointed out to the appraiser was the charger. And she says, this is the first time it's been pointed out, but my guess is this is going to be a thing now. So she was actually very excited to see that.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, as far as like sending it in for the rebate and getting the rebate, that was easy and it was pretty quick. I think I remember the turnaround on it was pretty quick. It was, easier than sending in one of those Menards rebate. I mean, it was Dakota County. I mean, Dakota Electric's pretty easy to work with. And as far as getting it set up and everything, that was the easiest thing, quite frankly. I mean, deciding which charger, deciding which car, those were the much tougher conversations than any of that setup. We'd do it again if we get another EV.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now that you've had it for 15 months, what are the long-term impressions? Are you happy with how it's holding up? Overall, are you has it met your expectations space-wise, functional? Anything you want to say about that?
Well, we went to Costco the other week and had it totally full. So, dropped the back seats. Yeah, I think, and it's nice because if we are making these trips where we're not going too far, but we're going to do some shopping, it's a great car to just drive around. And no, you're not, I get that gas isn't crazy right now, but still, it's nice to not be burning gas.
Yeah, I agree. It has been meeting our needs, and I think it will continue for quite some time. And you're asking about use cases earlier. I think for our family, once our kids graduate and move on to college, I could see our i3 certainly being one of the cars that maybe if we decide to not do winter here in Minnesota, that we might take that with us somewhere, and that would be a great winter car somewhere. Maybe you didn't ask this question, but maybe folks have said that some of the downsides is winter, and I think with the rear wheel drive as well as the drop, from a battery that gets 120 miles, I could see how that might affect some folks and their decisions. But really, what I did last winter, if it snowed, I'm just like, well, not driving today, but I'll drive tomorrow because the roads will be clear and the rear wheel drive will be great. So on days that it snowed, I just kept it in the garage. So yeah, so it's been meeting our needs. Absolutely.
And as far as if you did take it out in the snow, was it handling okay, or is it a little I don't think we took
it out. I'd say for me, when it got slushy, that was maybe especially when there was ice on the bottom and then maybe some snow or slush on top. Those were the days that I was like, I think I'll make it back into the garage. They were few and far between. But that was it. Yeah. Otherwise, it was fine. And we did not put snow tires on.
So what are your favorite features, and then what are a couple things you maybe wish were different? And maybe there aren't any. Maybe it's perfect.
I just think it's like it's just a cool car. There's just so many things about the way it's set up and the way it drives and all of that. I think the only feature that would be nice would be power seats. And that's because he's 6'2" and I'm 5 foot. So the moving of the seats yeah. I'm not going to say anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately on our model that wasn't an option, and that's probably, you're right, that's probably the one thing. Maybe 1B that I miss is it also doesn't have a heated steering wheel for some reason, which seems like something that could happen. It does have heated seats. And that's one of the reasons actually why I get so persnickety about my setup. So it's like, no, kids, don't drive it because it's set up perfectly, you know. So I think if it had the memory seats, that would be perfect. Otherwise, the things I love about it, I personally, I'm just, you know, I'm in love with the color and the blue trim on the outside. I think the interior is so unique. I think that's one thing that when people get into the car and they're just not, it's just not even in the realm of possibility of seeing what the interior looks like, especially those who aren't familiar with it. So I think that's pretty cool, all the wood paneling and things like that.
And it's got carbon fiber in it too.
Yeah, carbon fiber in it, and then the outside is carbon fiber as well.
Oh, it is?
Or or a year ago, 15 months ago, I could have told you exactly for sure, but yeah, I believe most of the outside work is carbon as well. Yeah, in fact, I can do this on the car and the same thing on my road bike, and it makes the same noise. The carbon, yeah, it's kind of fun.
So it sounds like you'd do it again. You'd definitely buy this again for this use case. But you've got another vehicle. Are you thinking maybe your next car will be an EV?
Yes. Now, I mean, right now is a little bit weird, but typically I have a pretty good commute. I typically am commuting to Minneapolis. And so I really wanted an all-wheel drive vehicle, and I wanted something a little higher for traffic. It's just a little bit, the visibility is a little bit better. So when this car's lease is up, I think we definitely want to look at the EV options that are out there with all-wheel drive and anything a little bit higher profile, because I'm kind of envious. I had a hybrid for 10 years prior to the car I have now, and even I miss that kind of mileage. I miss that kind of usage. So, I mean, I think it would be really great to have another EV.
And I guess what I tell people, and I'll tell you this, I do not see myself going back to a gas-powered car. Period. It's too much fun to drive. I've never been much of a car guy before now, but now I get it. It's like, this is fun to drive. It's fun. I love the environmental, impacts or non-impacts that it has, and yeah, I think it would be. I don't think I could go back at this point. So I echo that once her present car, once that lease is up, we probably will own at least 2 EVs at that point.
I think we're in the same boat. When we bought the Prius, at the time it was 2008, I think. So I thought, well, we'll always have a gas car. Mm-hmm. And then when we decided to buy an EV, it was, well, we'll always have a hybrid, just so we always have that back. And like 2 months into owning ours, it was like, why would we ever go to the gas station again? Like,
well, it's funny you're saying that, because our daughter also drives a gas-powered car, and I was driving it the other day, and I noticed it was, I don't even know how I noticed because I'm not used to looking at it anymore, but it was almost out of gas, and I get to the pump, and I'm like, I know it's only been 15 months, but it's like, how do I do this again? Yeah. And what's amazing is I think we get so used to using the pump that it's just rote memory. But when you don't use it, there's actually some steps in there that you have to kind of think through, And again, maybe the opposite's true. Now I don't even have to think through. I just plug in the car every night, or when the app tells me to plug it in, and I plug it in.
You said people have come up to you in parking lots and things like that. So have there been any funny questions or funny experiences with that?
Was it when Dakota Electric came and they were installing I don't know if they were installing the meter or they were checking it, and you opened up the garage and the guy saw...
It was the city inspector.
City inspector,
Yes.
okay. Here, you can tell it.
Oh.
Here's half the story. Now you tell it.
Yeah, you just do the punchline.
He said, "Oh, wow."
No, but because he doesn't usually see this.
He actually had told me, so again, 15 months ago, that he had been doing about 2 or 3 inspections for electric vehicles a week, which I thought was pretty good. But he said that this was the first i3 he had seen. He saw a lot of Teslas, and he's like, I think I could see myself getting one of those. So it's like, oh, great. Yeah. And but actually another one that I was thinking of is last year, Lakeville does a parade. Well, first of all, I was able to open up because it has the dual moonroof, and I was able to open that up, and we tied inflatable
Like
animals,
flamingo and
yeah, to
pelican.
the roof, and it looked silly and very parade like. But I dropped them off. I went to the end of the parade so that we'd have a car at the end, and I pull up kind of nose to nose with this pickup truck. And it's a well-loved, well-used pickup truck, and there were a couple guys in there, and I can see them smoking, and in fact I could even see they were popping a brewski or two, and they were wearing the John Deere tractor hats, and they're kind of looking at me and they're talking and they're pointing, and I'm like, am I safe here? And they get out of the car, and I get out of the car, and they're like, "Hey, you!" I'm like, "Yeah." "Hey, is that an electric car?" I go, "Yeah." They're like, "Hey, can I see it?" And so here and they're like, and they offered me a beer, and they're like, "Here you go." And so I gave them a tour, and I'd like to think that maybe we got another convert out of that discussion, but I thought that was interesting, and maybe it also played into my bias too, right? That someone driving a pickup truck wouldn't be interested in an electric vehicle. Obviously, this was prior to Elon Musk announcing the the pickup or Rivian or anything like that. Yeah. So, but I thought that was probably the one story that I'm like, okay, I need to check my assumptions, because all they were doing is they were interested in the electric car.
Knowing it, even if the truck is their main vehicle, chances are they have another one for going to town or whatever. So, and yeah, like you said, soon there are going to be a bunch of electric pickup trucks.
Yeah, so one of the cool features is the suicide doors. However, for some people it can be a little confusing. They're not used to it. But the people that we notice that tend to really get it right away are the pickup truck owners, especially the 4-doors, because many of those have the suicide doors. So when we're talking to folks who own pickup trucks and we say, yeah, this has suicide doors, they know exactly how to open it. Otherwise, everyone else, it's like a group of clowns trying to figure out how to get in and out of the doors, because they just work differently.
Yeah, I guess, is there anything else you want to share or say about it? Or
Do you want to go for a ride?
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate you taking so much time and letting me hang out in your driveway.
Not a problem.
Well, in the words of the pickup guys, you want to go grab a beer now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Let's do that. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.